Right.
Oh, we're live.
We are live. Okay. Today I've got Jan and Michael and Sage. Do you want to say hi?
Hi.
Hi.
How's everybody?
Michael, we can't see you, but they're going to hear your voice in a minute. So there's Michael. Okay. So I was had the privilege of hanging out with Jan and Michael. Trying to remember when we were there.
Gosh, was it
April.
October? No,
May?
no, you weren't here with us.
Yeah, it was
Remember?
April. It was April. I graduated. It was in April, and you were down for a couple of weeks there. And
Yeah, in April of this year. And we were having a conversation that was a really great conversation, and we thought it would be fun to record this because we think other Shackley people will benefit from this conversation. So we're recording this, and hopefully it'll benefit somebody. But we were driving down the road, and Jan made a comment. And in that comment, we both all went, hey, wait, there's so many people that could benefit from this. We should record it. So this is why we've scheduled this at a separate time to share with other people. So, Jan, you were talking in the car about, if I remember correctly, the conversation was that you had customers that were coming and asking you for where is XYZ, and then you made a comment about the way that Carolyn Whiteman, your presidential master, handles when you ask her a question as opposed to what you do when someone asks you a question about needing to find something in the that Shackley's providing. Can I take you back to where we were? We'll start there, and then we'll pick up the conversation. Is that fair?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, it was really, I can remember the exact person and what they had said to me, what they were asking, because it was something that seemed to me like they hadn't even tried to look.
Yeah.
And that's what was so, kind of remarkable about it for me, because I could see that perhaps I was in kind of engendering a dependency in the way that I'm always like, get to it, go to it, I'll handle it, I'll have it for you. So that's really where the whole conversation started. And I did get her the information, and what I was thinking at that time was about how, like when we've asked Carolyn for things, or over the years, because we've been involved for a number of years, somebody that was more farther down the road than us would say, well, you can find that in your library, or just look in the search bar, or why don't you, check out this or that resource, and as opposed to doing the work for you.
Right. And so I said bingo, because that really is the beginning of making a decision between how you're going to conduct your business or not. Kind of boils down to this kind of thinking, and that there's a choice that we make, and part of it is that you're making a transition from one type of leader to another type of leader, and it illustrated it so well that I thought others of us could benefit from this kind of discussion.
Mm-hmm.
But here's what I know, and that's that to the degree that you want to make it, there's a fine line, because usually most of the people that come and are attracted to our industry, and in Shackley in particular, are people who care about others, and they really want to care and give good information. And we have this thing that says, in order for me to be a good leader, I need to provide people with XYZ information, and I'm going to be good at it. But there comes a line where you need to empower your customers, because otherwise, why would they need to go out and look at any answers when you're the one that's providing them for them? You're creating laziness and muscles that you're not even giving them a chance to find the answers that are out there. So the comment that I made was that that's a big change, and that you have to be careful, especially someone who's wired like you, Jan, who you are a caregiver. You do like helping people. You are kind. You are all those things. And that kind of personality type in particular has to be aware that it's going to feel weird. It's like putting on a pair of shoes for the first time, and they're stiff, and you might get some blisters because they're not broken in yet, but they're not comfortable. It doesn't feel like you, and in fact it feels like you're kind of being a little bit mean. And but understanding that to go from one way of thinking and move to a new way of thinking is essential to be able to build a solid organization. Because if you're at master coordinator level and above, you've got 50, 60, 80, 100, 200 teams that you're working with, and if you stop to answer everybody's question about where they can find the convention, how is the convention qualifications work, for example. You're not empowering them to figure that question out for themselves. And you don't have the time to do it. So you have to start developing the muscles that feel uncomfortable at one stage but will become more comfortable for you. And then, Michael, I think you talked about that led you to think about the fact that really was the difference between thinking in the S quadrant from the cash flow quadrant that the Rich Dad Poor Dad teaches, that it's moving from one quadrant to another. Do you want to talk and flesh that out a little bit more, what some of your thinking was as we were having this conversation?
Sure, Charlene. It's interesting when Carolyn Whiteman has been teaching the quadrants of Robert Kiyosaki's, and from the employee to the self-employed to the business owner to the investor, and looking at those quadrants. I remember her going over them so many times, and you think, boy, I've got this, and then when she said, you understand that you're in the S quadrant, even though you're a business owner, generally up to about executive coordinator, because you're learning, you're doing all these things, but you really, that's where the pivot goes to, where you jump over to a business owner. And to make that jump over to a business owner, your teams must learn to thrive and survive and develop and be with a little less of your input, because that is what you said. When you're developing 50, 60, 100 teams, your time becomes so minimal. Everyone has to learn to be effective, and that's what a business owner is an effective business owner, and not just someone who's working in their job or their company or whatever.
I think the transitions between thinking, at the beginning, when you're just wanting to get your customer base solid and move to thinking from, yes, I'm wanting to do this, and then you get to the level of director. It requires kind of one way of thinking. And then we talk a lot about shifting your activity from the things that got you to director, where you're building teams, and some of the times that you had spent developing your customer base should be solid, and so your thinking shifts towards building teams and building a solid organization. We talk about that. But what I thought was interesting talking in the car, and we had such a great discussion, was the fact that there's another transition when you're moving between 2 or 3 teams on your recap and in your organization, and you want to start moving towards mobilizing and advancing 2, 3, 4, 5 ranks. You've got to make some shifting in your thinking, not just in your what kind of personal development do you want to focus on, because that changes. How do you spend your time is the most key thing that you have to switch your brain, because you're used to doing the other. In fact, it makes you feel satisfied and important and busy because it's the kinds of things that you're used to doing, which was the member care, I call it. It's the caring for your customers. Not that you're not going to care for them, but your time has to switch, and you only have so much time available to managing your business, and by necessity it forces you to not be the answer giver and learn the skill set necessary to empower other people to find their own answers.
Right.
I hope that makes sense.
It does. Very much. It does. I remember Roland said something about that people like to discover also. I think that they enjoy the feeling of being empowered. So really, it's not like you're doing something that they don't even really like. It's something that they would enjoy because they feel empowered, they feel more able.
Right.
So I think it's a positive win-win all the way around. It's just a different set of, it's just doing things a little differently, like you said, putting on a new pair of shoes. It just feels weird in the beginning. So, maybe you could go over, did you want to discuss, because we are transitioning. I'm sure you can talk about like some of the things that we would need to do.
Well, I think the main thing is that you have to put on the mental muscles, that knee-jerk reaction when somebody says, hey, could you get me XYZ, that the need to serve and be the one who answers is a knee-jerk reaction. And so I think it's important in your planning that you just are aware of it. Half of it is when you're developing a new habit, it's it's being aware of what are the triggers that get you there. So to start making a list of those triggers, like what is it that, what kinds of questions do people ask me a lot of? Where are the triggers? I remember I used to be on an executive committee with Shackley for technology, and in those days I would get sometimes 400 to 500 emails from Shackley people a day, because I was the heading up that committee years ago. And granted, a lot of people didn't know how to turn on computers, although you'll be surprised how few still people can't turn on a computer today. But in those days, I was getting 300 to 400 or 500 emails a day. Well, the only way I could manage that was that I started to go, okay, what are those triggers? What are the things that people ask? And then I can copy, paste, send, and I don't have to be the one who writes, hello, Jan, thank you for answering me this question. I could just, if it applied to one person and it could apply to 25 people, I could have ready-made answers ready to go. So I think a tip is that if you start making a record of where it is that people, A, interrupt you, what kinds of questions come up frequently, you could have a frequently asked questions section that you could then point people to those things. But having ready responses is half of it. The time to think about your response isn't on the fly. Most of us aren't good thinking on our feet. I think we make the mistake and we think, oh, wow, she sounded so easy. She sounded so great. And usually people who are at the master coordinator level, it's because they've had more practice saying no, and they've had more practice coming up with things so it just comes out of their mouth smoother because they've thought about it and they know what it is. So when you're moving from one transition of thinking to another, you almost have to pre-think it through. Like I know that even to this day, like if I'm going in a new situation and I'm meeting people who I don't know, prior to me going in the door, I will think through what possible questions could people be asking me. Because I don't want to have to think on my feet right then. That's the worst time to do it. I want it to feel natural. So the other day, Doug and I were in D.C. and we went to this event, and I knew I was going to be meeting people, and I knew that they were going to be asking me, you know, who are you? What do you do? Those are the main questions. And for that situation, I went through and I thought through, okay, so when they ask me, what's my ultimate outcome? What do I want from this time? Do I want to see if I can follow up with product, Shackley? How do I want to hear what they're saying, and then how can I bring my message if it's appropriate? So I thought that all through prior to getting there, so that when we were introducing ourselves and people were asking who you are and how you got here, and it was a private invitation, so it was like, how did you know these people? It was an easy transition for me to do that. But I think most people don't do the preparation ahead of time. They just walk in, then people start asking them questions, and then they get nervous, and then they start making those, we have to guard the what we talk to ourselves. I think we talk to ourselves so poorly that's my big beef. I think you have to guard how you say to yourself, because you would never talk to yourself the way out loud to somebody else. Like you would never go, oh, Charlene, you are the stupidest thing. I would never go, Jan, that is the stupidest thing you've ever done. You must look like a total buffoon. I don't understand what just came out of your mouth. I cannot believe you just did that, Jan. I would never talk to you that way, ever. I just wouldn't do it. And yet I don't have the common courtesy to not talk to myself that way. So I think guarding the way we talk about ourselves, especially when we're caught off guard, when people are asking us questions, is really vital. And I know one way to take care of that is by going in prepared. So back to the discussion, I got off on a rabbit trail, sorry about that. Back to the discussion about moving from one to the other, you're going to have several questions. So if the majority of your time is spent answering customer questions about, hey, where can I find information about da 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 da, honestly, it's not the best use of your time to be answering a lot of customer questions. If you've got your customer base up and running, that kind of effort about tracking down the what's the ingredient list on Herblax, and all that stuff that can sometimes use our time, and it makes us feel like we're doing business, but in essence it's keeping us away from doing the team development, people development, leadership development, which is necessary to build an organization. So if you're getting a lot of those questions, I have ready-made things ready to go. So if I've got a lot of customer questions, I have the digital product catalog ready to go and the link ready for myself. So if someone's saying that, I have it on my computer, I copy, paste, send it to the email and say, hey, sounds to me like you could get that on in the catalog. I'm just forwarding this digital file in case you don't have a physical calendar, catalog, but the answers are right there. And you should see there's great videos in there. Take a look. There's great videos that you don't get in the physical catalog. I have that ready to go. I don't even think about it. I just copy, paste, send it, add it to the email, and send it to the person, because that takes me a few seconds, as opposed to if I have to call her back and say, hey, you can get the ingredient list for Herblax on da-da-da-da, here's what it is, and I become the information agent. It's taking the mental space, let alone just my time. So shifting the thinking and analyzing where is the best use of your time is key.
Okay. Absolutely. I love the bandwidth, the bandwidth discussion, the working smart.
Yeah. Tell me about that, because to me it's just so vital. You've been to a live Working Smart, and now you're working through the video coursework again. I don't remember, honestly, where that we talk about it. So I don't know, people who are new to Working Smart, if they would be there. Just talk about how that has impacted your thinking.
Well, time management, I think, is such an important thing, and that's the reason why we're so interested in getting through the Working Smart and really incorporating the key things and the concepts of Working Smart. For me, I'm pretty good at time management, I thought, but what I'm finding is that that I'm actually not. It's not that I'm not good at time management. I'm not good at bandwidth management. That's
so good.
I had a real aha with that one. And it's really how much brain you have to be able to use in that moment. And if our brain is being preoccupied by projects that are undone, or all these kinds of small customer calls and people that are unable to find their own information or whatever, and then you've got to take the time to go and take care of those things, or you know that you need to make these callbacks, it takes away your ability to be in the moment and be present and utilize all of your abilities, including your brain power, your memory, your ability to process and everything else. It's not 100% online if you're without that bandwidth. So I love the bandwidth management, and it's really, I'm going to be utilizing that to help me. And for example, even within my relationship with Michael and Sage, in our family relationship, one of the things I notice is that oftentimes I'm not there 100% in the conversation. I'm thinking about something else, or I'm doing something else. And I feel like it's going to really help us in our relationship to, yes, if I am doing something, I'm doing it. And I'm present in doing my project. When we're going to communicate, it's better if we have separate times when we're now together and able to communicate and be all together and not be half-baked somewhere else,
I love it.
Somewhere else. So, but I really feel that it's going to make me a much more effective communicator as well as business leader.
Yep. Well, I think this has been an important discussion. I don't want to take up more time unless there's another topic or something that you think would be vital in this, but I think that we've given ourselves things to continue to think about, and other people things to think about how to make sure that the thinking is elevated into bigger level thinking so that we can manage more leaders. And I think once we do that, we actually start attracting people who want what we have to offer, and the leadership that you provide continues to attract more leaders. And if you spend your time micromanaging, you're going to attract people who like being micromanaged. If you release yourself of that responsibility, you're going to actually attract people who are wanting and are able to do that. In fact, I'll end with this last thing. And I just was listening to this webinar that I purchased it's kind of my personal development that I'm working through, and it was all on Facebook marketing and building relationships in Facebook. And the gal who was leading the course was talking about that there's 4 quadrants that people come in, and one is that they're low. It sounds terrible. I hate these words, but it was helpful. So put it in the spirit of helpful. It wasn't me coming up with these words, but she said you have to decide that there's 4 types of people in your business and that will come to you, and one is low value, high maintenance. And the other one was high value, high maintenance. And then on the bottom ends of the quadrants, it was low value, low maintenance, and then it was high value, low maintenance, and then it was high value, high maintenance. And that the high value, high maintenance people are actually tricky because they are providing value. So you don't want to disvalue a customer, but if they're high value, because you need them, they're part of your team, they're customers, whatever. But if they're high maintenance, where they're always looking for a break, they're always looking for a favor, it's never good enough, then you have to decide how you manage your efforts towards high value, high maintenance people. And what you're looking for is high value, low maintenance people, which I think was really true. And then in Shackley, we have to be really careful about the people who are high maintenance but really bring in low value. In other words, they want all the information and all your time and all your personal coaching and whatever, and they want to call you to let you know the color of their
whatever.
What happened in the toilet. They want to let you know what color of yellow it was, and all that kind of stuff. And yet they only buy like 50 PV. That's really high maintenance, but very low return. So it sounds. I think that it's hard conversations to have with Shackley people because generally we're very caring people, and so when you start categorizing people like that, it sounds so cut and dried and cruel. But the reality is that if we want to be professionals and we want to make this a professional business, you have to decide where is the value for customer acquisition, where is the value from team members that you're building organizations with, and look at that, and what you're really looking for is those people who are high value, but are self-starters, and there's very low maintenance. They're low maintenance. They're not going to call you every 15 minutes and say, I'm stepping out the door. I'm going to do this high thing, and to be able to talk to people about that. And then the question that she asked is, in order to attract low maintenance, high value people, are you low maintenance and high value? Because you'll attract what you are. I thought that was a really, really interesting discussion. So I think it fits really well with what we're talking about.
Certainly, and I think we can also condition people to be lower maintenance too.
Absolutely. And it takes a little bit of adjustment when you're used to being the answer giver and people look at you at that. You have to keep your, firmly made the decisions, and then they'll catch on.
Sure.
That, she's going to tell me the same thing anyway. That's in the catalog, or you can get that in the member center. I'm going to get the same answers all the time, so you can get that.
Well, thank you, Charlene. That is some great information.
Yeah, really excellent. Thank you so much.
Great time.
Okay. Well, it was good to see your 3 faces. I love your family, and I think this is a worthwhile discussion to have. So thanks for joining me.
Absolutely.
Have a beautiful day.
Bye-bye.